You ever been in a conversation and someone gives you two options and acts like those are the only two? And then you pick one and you feel like you were just played? Do you ever wonder what just happened? Today we're going to talk about false dichotomies. Let's make it make sense.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Let's start off with defining a dichotomy. A dichotomy is a division of two options where no other options exist. It covers the entire ground. It's either A or B. Not both, not neither. And every single case that you could think of falls into one of these two. This is a sound structure when it reflects reality. The big problem is when it doesn't. I think it's important that we start off with talking about what a true dichotomy is. For example, for this video, you either subscribed or you did not, right? You either subscribed or you didn't. Those are the options. That's a true dichotomy. Every single person that's watching this video either subscribed or didn't. There's no middle ground that you kind of subscribed. There's no neither ground where you don't have one of those. You either did or you didn't. What does that tell you? That means a true dichotomy covers the entire landscape with those two options. That's it. That's all. There's no other possibility. It's important to understand what a true dichotomy is because when people give you something that's not a true dichotomy, they expect you to pick from two options, and that's not fair. But when a true dichotomy is presented, like if I asked every single person here, did you subscribe, yes or no? Every single person should be able to answer this by either saying yes or no. There isn't really a third option there. The people that smuggle in dichotomies, they act like there isn't one. But it's important to recognize that there are cases where there isn't one. The next thing I want to focus on, and we'll talk a little more about this, is what a de facto dichotomy is. So these are dichotomies that are not true dichotomies, but in practice, they're pretty true. So if I was to say iOS or Android, that's a de facto dichotomy. Are there other mobile operating systems? Yes, sure. But let's be honest, are you rocking a BlackBerry? No. Do any of you remember WebOS? Are you rocking WebOS? No. In practice, when you go look for an operating system for a phone, it's either iOS or it's Android, right? That's not a true dichotomy because it's not like a true dichotomy would be like iOS or not iOS, which would cover everything else. But when you go to the store, those are the options you get, right? It's a practical limitation, not a categorical one. So there aren't just two categories of smartphone operating systems. Similarly, you can make not a dichotomy, but like a quad-omy of video game systems, right? You're either on Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, or you have a PC. Are those the only ones? Of course not. There are other game systems. Anybody on TikTok knows that. But realistically, if you're going to be in gaming, you have one of those options. So that's a de facto limit of choices. Now let's move on to a false dichotomy. Now that we know what these are. So let's say I'm shipping you something and you say, did you ship it UPS or FedEx? Well, that's a false dichotomy. There's clearly other options. I could have sent it through the post office. That's not like an unseen, unrealistic option. Of course not. DHL, less likely, but still viable, right? I could have paid someone I really trust to hand deliver it. That would be dope. That would be great. So it's not a true dichotomy. And if you stick me to that, you say, hey, either it's UPS or FedEx or you didn't ship it. Well, that's dishonest, right? If you ask me the question, and don't even suggest another option, well then, like, this would work in reverse. Let's say you were shipping something to me and you asked me, how do you want me to ship it, UPS or FedEx? It could be that you just want to ship one of those two, but I don't know if it might even be cheaper to do something else. So there could be a false dichotomy that you are smuggling in or hiding where you shouldn't be. So that's what a false dichotomy does in practice. It hides other alternatives and pretends like it's just these two. Now, how do these false dichotomies get smuggled in? There are three main ways. The first one is a loaded question. A loaded question would be one where you sneak in a premise. You say, hey, are you going to keep letting them win, or are you going to fight back? Well, there's other options, right? Your premise could be wrong, that we're letting them win. We could be fighting back and losing, or we could just not play. There are other options. One that's very close is an exhausted framing. So you could say something like, well, we tried everything else. Bring it back to UPS versus FedEx. I tried all the others and they're trash. Well, you're closing on these alternatives by making an assertion. Have you tried everything else? Have you tried everything else to the point where it doesn't make sense to try again? Here's one that salespeople do. It's part of the reason I call some people timeshare salesmen. They use urgency.
This is your last chance.
When you create a time pressure, it removes part of your ability to consider all the other options. So you think, hey, I got to do this now. Otherwise, when somebody gives you a clock that's really small, the false dichotomy loves that. It lives there. It thrives. It grows. So if you see a clock that's winding down, ask yourself, is this realistic? Is it realistic that I have to make a decision like in the next hour, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 seconds? Here's a good one. You either protest in the streets or you work within the system. Is that a true dichotomy? Is that a de facto dichotomy? Is there a constraint in the real world that makes that like a thing? I mean, it's possible. A lot of people won't agree with you on that. But sometimes things get framed that way. There's a lot that you're eliminating when you say stuff like that. You're eliminating community building, dual power structures, that kind of thing. You're eliminating whole revolution. Now, again, the conversation can be had as to whether or not that's viable. But closing the door, hey, we've tried it, the exhaustion. Sometimes you'll hear people say things like what I just said about protesting and what I just said about working within the system, and then putting a clock on it. That's the urgency. We have to do something now. And the only thing that's available to us, we're not ready. So the only thing that's available to us is working within the system. Is that viable? Is that honest? Again, I'm not saying that those people are wrong. What I'm saying is that it is a false dichotomy and it does warrant conversation. So I'm using this as an example. Go back to the UPS versus FedEx thing. That's not emotionally charged, so it's easy to see that there's other examples. But when it comes to something like protest versus work within the system, somebody that puts forth a third alternative, there is emotion charged in there, and you maybe don't want to be part of that conversation. And in the reverse, when you're the person pushing forth that third alternative or being rushed not to, there's a reason. But again, it is a false dichotomy. So a dichotomy isn't wrong because it has two options. Some dichotomies, some true dichotomies have two options. So a dichotomy isn't wrong because it has two options. A dichotomy is wrong when it puts those two options and those aren't the only two. Your job isn't to reject every time there's an either or. That's not the move. Your job is to ask yourself, am I missing another option? Why is there an option missing? And who benefits from this missing third option? I hope I made that make sense. If you like this, like the video, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and I'll see you next time.